Hi friends, welcome to another video of Mule for Learn from D. This is going to be the part 2 of earlier proxy and load balancing video, where we saw that how we can use uh, an API in Anypoint Studio, and how we can use uh, Apache HTTP Server to configure the proxy and load balancing to distribute the load to our Mule server, right? So in that video, we actually used the internal runtime that we use for our development purpose inside Anypoint Studio. However, in real life scenario, you must be seeing that there would be either different dedicated servers for different environments. So there would be on-premise server, or probably you might be deploying to cloud hub. So that kind of things are there in the real life scenario, right? So today we would like to demonstrate a little bit closer to the real life scenario. Earlier also that we have seen how the proxy and load balancing we used to configure, but that time we created one Mule API. So I won't say this one API, I would say two HTTP services we actually created. So with two listeners we created this one. Now this is not the actual kind of implementation, right? So you must be seeing that there should not be the same application that is having two different flows, and then they are running in different ports. So that was, I used this pattern just to explain like how the things work, right? Now in the ideal scenario, what will happen is there would be only one flow, or let's say only one API that is running in a single port. Let's say that is running on 8081 for this one. So this port we need to externalize that part, and then we need to use this same listener, and we need to uh, deploy this application in multiple instances of the server, right? So if you see in this picture, I have tried to explain that part. So earlier, if you haven't checked the earlier video, I would request please have a look in the earlier video, because that is going to be reused. I mean the configurations which we did that time, so that we are again going to use here. The different I mean the new part that would be, we will use the Mule standalone runtime server instead of the internal runtime that is used by our Anypoint Studio, right? So that is the thing we would like to achieve. So this is more realistic to the actual project scenario. So please don't skip the video, I would request, and just go with the explanation what I show it here. So that is the request. Now thing is that if you see in this picture, again I'm going to use a single computer. So most of the time it in real life project, the environments are like one server is running in one computer. I mean whenever I'm saying computer, you must understand it as a server. Okay, so a server computer is there, and inside that Mule standalone runtime is running, and then there would be another server that is also running the Mule standalone runtime. So by that way we can consider that consider those two servers as different instances of the Mule runtime, right? So that is how the actual environments are set up in the real life project. So we will also see that part, but for now if we would like to go with this approach, because this is more simple, and once this one is done, we would also try to replicate that exact real life scenario. Okay, so here what we will do is single server computer. If you see, inside single computer we are planning to run two different instances of Mule standalone runtime server. So I have mentioned it as MuleSoft standalone runtime server 1, and then the second instance is MuleSoft standalone runtime server 2. Now the plan is we are not going to use these two separate listeners. We are not going to use. We wanted to use this for earlier video to make that one simple, and the basic purpose of that one was the focus was on this part, configuring the proxy and load balancing, right? So that part we focused in that video. So now our intention is to remove this listener and this flow, because we should not have the same functionality multiple times, right, inside a same project. So that makes it redundant. So we would like to remove this part. Okay, so now the thing is, there is one challenge, because if you see, the listener is running on port number, on which port is running, it is running on port number 8081, right? And because in a single computer, if we already have started something on a particular port, let's say in on 8081 port something is already running, and in that case you won't be able to run any other thing or any other process instance on that particular port. You must be having some different port to run another instance of that particular process, right? So in actual project scenario, what it happens, these servers are completely resides in a different computer. So in that case, the port number we can keep it, let's say we can use the port number 8081. So if the servers are running in altogether in the different server, then what will happen is, if you run the Mule application on port 8081 on one computer where the server instance 1 is running, I mean the MuleSoft standalone runtime server 1 is running, then that will not affect anything in the other computer, right? So in the other computer where the standalone runtime server 2 is running, there also you can run the Mule application on port number 8081. So if we use multiple computers, that time we don't face any problem with the port. But if you are running in the single computer, that time it is you must take care of this port number, right? So you would see how we can take care of that part. And so first of all, what we would like to do is we will remove this listener. So let's say first we are removing this flow. We don't need this flow anymore, so I have just removed it, and here I'll just make it DigiWorld proxy load balancing version 1 flow. That is it. Okay, and now here what I would like to print is, instead of just value, I would like to print message dot attributes. Okay, so why I'm trying to print the attribute, because whenever we will be running this same application in different server instance, we must be having different ports, right? Because we are planning to run both the instances of the server in the single computer. So if one port is already occupied, another instance won't be able to run that particular service on the same port, right? So that is the reason we and in response also you would like to see what is the port number it is trying to access, because our plan is the load balancer should first should distribute the route the first request to the instance server instance 1, and then the second request should go to server instance 2, and the third one should go to server instance 1, and then the fourth one to server instance 2. So that is how the distribution should be done. So that is the reason we are planning this way. So let's go ahead and do that. So I have just removed that second flow from this particular flow from this particular Mule XML file. So we already created this one earlier, so I have just removed that part. Now I would also remove this HTTP listener second. So this part I have removed. Now we are left with only one listener and one flow, and we will see this is how the actual project works in real life. So we always used to have one instance of the, I mean, let's say one API running on single port, and then we don't run that same API on another port, right? So and that is the thing we are trying to replicate here. So I would just run the project, and once it is successfully deployed, we would like to send some request to this one using our postman like we did. So earlier we also did this, so this time we will again do another set of testing. So let it just deploy it, and at the same time, once when it is deploying that, I would like to tell you that this is the zip file for our standalone runtime server, so that I have already downloaded from the MuleSoft site. And I also have mentioned like how we can download this from the MuleSoft site in another video, that is send MuleSoft logs to Splunk. So this one, if you haven't checked that, so I request please check that one as well, because this particular video tells about uh, how we can set up Splunk Enterprise in our local computer, and then also setting up MuleSoft server, and then using showing up the, I mean, creating an application and then deploying that to MuleSoft server standalone runtime, and sending that, I mean, viewing the logs in this Splunk Enterprise that you must be I mean, that has been configured in the local. So just check that one as well. So for this one, what we would like to do is we'll create one folder, and we'll tell it like MuleSoft. Okay, Mule servers. I will just make it as Mule servers, and then Mule servers, and then what I will do is I will create one folder with the name instance1, and then we'll create another folder and we'll call it as instance2, right? Now what we will do is we'll copy this zip file, Control C, and then we'll go here inside this, we'll just paste it, and then we will just extract it. So I'll just extract it. So once it is extracted, this one will come. Now similarly, I'll do the same thing here for instance2. And if you see, both the servers we are trying to configure in the same computer, right? So once this is done, so this time we have this one. So what I will do is I'll remove this one. Zip file no more required. This one also I'll remove, and then I'll just name it as server1, server instance1 server. Okay, I'll just make it as instance1 server, and I'll just cut it from here, and I'll place it here. So just trying to make it I mean, little bit easy for us to understand it, so I'll remove that part now. So inside inside Mule servers we have instance1, and we have server, Mules and standalone runtime server, that we have called it as server. So inside this we have all these. So a similar thing we will do for our this one. I'll name it as server, and then we'll cut it from here, and then we'll place it here, Control V, and then I'll delete this folder because this is not having anything else. Okay, because I have just moved that folder outside. Okay, so I'll delete this now. Okay, so now we are ready. with our setup. So we have two MuleSoft standalone runtime servers with instance 1 and instance 2, right? So okay, so now if you see, we have this one. These are two instances, so that is pretty much aligned with our this diagram. And here we are trying to run the two instances of the server, and there we are going to run one application to those instances. We want to we want to deploy the same application to those instances, but because we are using the same computer, that's the reason we need to use the different ports. Okay, so let's see how we can do so. Meanwhile, our application is now deployed, so this time we have only one flow here, and we would like to send a request to our flow. Okay, so flow, as we have kept flow 1, but thing is that now we don't have flow 1 and flow 2, we have only one flow, right? So I have just duplicated this request. I'll place it here. So 1 minute, I'll just reorganize this one so that we can test it. We can, so this is the one, right? So I would say this one as part 2 and then underscore flow request. Okay, so this is how I will call it, and so that we can identify our postman request. So here our request looks exactly same. So 8081 localhost my services version 1 test. Let's go and verify this one once again before we actually send the request. If you see, this is the path, and if we go here, this is the port, right? And this refers to, though it is 0000, so localhost is perfect for us. Okay, so now let's say let's send one request here. So I'll send it, and if you see, now this is how the response coming back. So why the response is coming back this way? Because we have mentioned set payload as attribute, right? So that is the reason it is actually giving us this response in some different format. So what we can do to make it just more easy to understand, what we will do is we'll delete this part. Before deleting that, we would like to copy this expression, so Control C, and then we'll delete it. Transform message we will use, and then we'll say set response, right? We'll say set response, and inside this, instead of Java, we will make it as JSON, and here we will just put message.attributes, right? That is what we want to do. Now we'll just save it, and then automatically it has deployed it. Now if we send the request, and this is pretty much more understandable, and if you see the values, we can clearly see. And the important part is this one, okay? Because what we are going to do is we want to deploy the same application to two different instances of our MuleSoft runtime standalone runtime server, and there we need to configure it such a way so that we can actually before deploying that to the server, we want to update the port number, because we are trying to do this in the single computer. So if one instance is already running on one port, then that port cannot be used by other instance. Okay, other instance of the same HTTP service. Okay, now let's go to this one, and what we would like to do is I'll just stop this one, and then what I will do is I will just export this one, and then so we will export this one, and this time it is going to this path. So we would like to provide our this proxy and load balancing, and we would like to create one folder here, mule exports I would say, and then this is the folder we would like to give there in the export path. So I'll just mention this one, and then I would like to replace this part. Okay, now I'll say okay, so if you see it has successfully exported the jar file. Now we have to do some adjustment. There is another way, but before that we will just try to make it very simple, and we would like to deploy the application, and later on we will find a more suitable a way that is mostly followed in the projects. So what I will do is, for now I would like to copy, and so let's do one thing. In the mule export I am creating another one folder, that is instance, okay, let's say for instance one. So that means we are trying to update, we are trying to put the application here, Control C, and then in the instance one we are putting, and similarly I would like to create another folder, that is for instance 2, right? And then we'll copy this same file, copy this one, and then place it here. Okay, so now what we will do is we will create two files. Let's say this one, examples. Okay, so let's open another folder so that we can see it clearly. So we'll go inside example proxy and load balancing. This is the one, and then we have mule export, and we have the servers here, right? Mule servers here. Okay, so what we will do is we would like to change the port number what we have. So instance 1 we will keep it as is. However, for instance 2 we will make it as how it is 8082, right? In the picture, if you see in this diagram, it is 8082 for instance 2. So that is the thing we would like to update here. So for the instance 2, let's say we are going here, and then inside this we would like to so using 7-zip I would like to open the archive, and once I do that, this is how it would look like. Okay, now inside this let's say we have this one property as let's say where we have that one. So this is our flow, right? If you see, this is our flow, right? So what we would like to do is we would right click on this and we'll say edit, and once we do that, this actually opens. So here, and this is the port number, so make sure that you are inside the instance 2, because this is the file we will copy it from here, and we will put it inside the apps folder of our Mule standalone runtime server of instance 2. Okay, so this one I'm updating it, so I'll just remove it, and then I'll make it 8082, and then I'll save it. So I'll just save it. So it is saved now. If you see, the star has gone away. So now I'll close this one, and when we do that, it will say that some file was modified and do you want to update it in the archive? I would say okay. So that means our file is now updated. So if we open this one and again do the view, then it will show us 8082, right? So that is how we can actually after the export also we can update few things in our deployable archive. Now if you see, for instance 2 I have already updated the port number for our application to 8082, and let's see for instance 1 what is there. So I would say show more 7-zip, then open archive, and then inside this we have this is our application mule XML file, and if we just see, do view, then it is 8081. So we are pretty much good with our application setup. Now what we will do is I will copy the this deployable archive file from here, then I will copy it, and if you see, the right side part, it is showing as Mule servers. So I will go to instance 1. So from Mule export for instance 1, I am taking this file and then I will put it inside the server, inside apps folder. I'll put it here. Okay, so we haven't started these servers yet, so don't worry, we will before that only we are putting it. So no problem in that. Okay, so in the apps folder we have already put the instance 1, of our application. Now similarly, from the left side, we are going to for instance 2, and we'll copy this one, and in the Mule server instance 2 also we have server, and then apps. Inside apps, we'll copy the instance 2 of our application. So copy, and then we'll place it here. Okay, pretty much done with our application setup. So let's just go ahead and start our servers. So I would like to go to instance 1 of the server, and then inside this we have bin folder. We have done this earlier as well, so please, if you are not familiar with, I would request, please follow the earlier video. Part 1 is also there. So I'll say command, and then once I do that, our application, this part is now open, and I will say mule dot bat, or let's say just we can say yeah, mule dot bat is fine, or just mule is fine also. So if you see, the path is saying completely showing the Mule servers instance 1 of server we are trying to run. So we'll just say what it is there. Load balancing is not recognized as this one. What is this? Oh, okay. So it is complaining about some path here. So this ampersand is here. That is the reason it is not able to run it somehow. So unable to locate wrapper executable, this also out. Okay, so if you see, it is not able to take this part, proxy and load balancing. So I would just close this one, and then what I will do is I will correct this path. So instead of proxy ampersand load balancing, I will say proxy and load balancing. Okay, now let's just put some underscore there. Okay, so that is fine. If we do that, now it is pretty much good. So here also, if you see, now it is proxy and load balancing, right? So we'll again go inside instance 1 server, and then inside this cmd, and this time this should not give any problem. So mule dot bat, enter, and we are pretty much good. This is running our service, running our server, and if you see, it has automatically taken the DigiWorld proxy load balancing version 1, and it has deployed. Okay, that is good. Now let's go to our this one, and let's send the request. So make sure that our internal Mule runtime server is not running inside Anypoint Studio, because in that case it will occupy the 8081 port, so you won't like to do that. So make sure that this one is stopped. Okay, so I have already stopped that. So now if you see, our application is now deployed, and let's send one request. Okay, and if we send the request, and that is good, we are already getting the response, and that is from 8082. What about, okay, so let's do one thing. We'll duplicate this one, and we'll say we will rename this one as a part2 flow, then 8081 we would say, and then this one we have duplicated that, then we will make it as underscore 8082, underscore 8082, right? So if we do that, then we are going to update this port and let's send the request. And this time if you see, it is saying connection refused because nothing is running in 8082, right? Because we haven't started our instance 2 of the server, right? So that is the reason. So let's go ahead and start our server 2 server instance 2. So we'll go inside this and we will say cmd, just copy to that. And we already have copied our application in the server instance 2 apps folder. So here already we have our application. Okay, so what I will do is I will just say mule.bat, so that will run our server. And once we do that, this one is also running. Okay, so it has already picked up the deployable jar file that was we placed there. So now we have two instances of our server. First one is running on the first one is instance 1 and the second one is instance 2. So 1 minute, let me keep it side by side so that we can see it properly. Okay, so this is how we can see it. So let's say we have this one as logged. Okay, so these are two instances running currently, and both the instances of the Mule runtime are running the same application, but we have explicitly changed the port, and that is the reason one instance, the first server instance 1 is running the DigiWorld proxy load balancing version 1 to port number 8081, and the second instance, which is this one, that is running our same application on port number 8082, right? So that actually matches the configuration which we have mentioned here in our diagram. And let's send some request to our instance 2 as well. So if you see, to the 8082, earlier it was coming as econ refused, so connection refused was coming that time. Now if you send, and the response is coming back successfully, we have got 200 okay, and this time it is from 8082. Okay, so now that is perfectly matching our diagram, and congratulations. So we have successfully run the same application on two different ports, on two different servers. So we have currently this configuration in place, single computer. Inside that we are running two instances of MuleSoft standalone runtime server, and that those two instances are running the same application. However, we have explicitly updated the port, and that is the reason the same application we can send a request on port 8081 and 8082, right? So that is good, that is good. So this part we have already covered, this part we have already covered. Now this part we have already covered. Now thing is that the earlier configuration we already had in place, so you would like to run the Apache server. So let's just try to go to our Apache HTTP server, this one. So I would like to open another window, and this time in the example I would go to Proxy and Load Balancing, and here if you see we have the Apache HTTP D. So this is the one we have. Now inside HTTPD we have this one. So I would like to say that this configuration of Apache HTTPD, Apache HTTP server, we already have covered in the part 1 video. So please, I would request, please go through that one if you are facing some difficulties understanding this one. So we'll go to config, and then we would just like to open this one, open with notepad httpd.config, and here I opened this file because earlier we used ampersand here, so, but this time we have already updated that. So you would like to take the latest path from here. I would say copy, and then I would like to update this part because otherwise this will not work, right? Earlier it worked, so that time we didn't face any issue. However, when we were trying to run the Mule server, that time it was not able to pick the path from there because that is some internal processing of our Mule standalone runtime server, so it does not accept the ampersand in the path. I mean the server home path. Okay, so I just I'll select save. So once it is done, this is how our Apache server host name and port we have given. And then similarly, we have already configured the proxy and load balancing configuration. So that is 8081 and 8082. That is pretty much good. And I think we don't need to change anything else. So this part we have already covered earlier. So just if you need some more details about this one, why we have put this part and how we have actually configured this thing. So I'd like to advise, like, please go through the earlier video. Okay, and that is it. So I will go to this one, and in the bin folder I would like to start a command prompt cmd, and then once I do that, then I will say httpd. That is it. So that should start our this one in our Apache HTTP server, which we have configured for proxy and load balancing. So now we are uh, finally there to test the service, our mules of services through our this one proxy and load balancing request. So I would like to duplicate this one, and then this time I'll place it. Okay, I'll just place it after this, and here I would like to rename this one as part 2. I'll say part 2 underscore proxy and load balancing test. Okay, so that is how I would like to call it. And then this time, so hello world and test. So because our first instance is running is this one, so we can successfully get the response, and similarly we have this one. And our basic purpose of using proxy and load balancing is we want to distribute the load. So this, using this load balancer, our request should be distributed to server instance 1 and server instance 2. So let us test that one. So our proxy URL should be this one, so there is no change. This is also same from the earlier video. So you just go to our request, and then we will send this request. Okay, from the postman. So let's send the request, and if we send it, so now let's see where from the request was served. So from the 8081 we received the response, and let's send another request, and this time let's check. Okay, that is good, interesting. See, from the 8082 we are receiving the response, right? So that is good, that is good. And again, if we send the request, so let me just pick this one. So if you see, we have just in the actual URL, that is, we are going to expose this URL to the outside client. So they will just see, like, okay, the port number is this one, localhost, and then the service URL is hello world. But internally that is mapped to this to our MuleSoft application or MuleSoft service that is running in our MuleSoft server. So there the port number is different, and also the service name is different. So that way we are hiding the actual service URL from the outside world. And also the proxy part helps us to put some additional layer of security in the proxy server, and that way we can also filter the IPs for that we need to do some different additional level of configuration, but these are the basic purpose of using proxy server. Okay, and also it is acting as load balancer, so that's the reason it is whenever we are sending the request, sometime it is taking the response, forwarding it from server to the server 1, and then the second request forwarding it to server 2. So that is how it is distributing the load, right? So as the same application is running in different server, so and we have the load balancer in place in place, so that's the reason we would be able to handle more number of requests, and then that we can distribute it to our server instances, and that way we would be able to serve more requests in a particular time, right? So if there is any increase of request for a particular time, that time also we would be able to serve the request, because we have the load balancer. Okay, and okay, so let's try a couple of more requests. So I'll send the request, and then this time from 8082, and then again from 8081. Similarly, again I have sent from 8082, and then from 8081, 8082, and then 8081, right? So that is how the load balancing actually worked. So we have just improved whatever we created in the part 1 video. That time whatever application structure we used that time, that was though it was using proxy and load balancing, however that was not that was actually deviating from the standards which we use in our actual project. So I created that for easy of understanding, so that we can understand the load balancing and proxy thing clearly. And this is pretty much like this is how we configure the proxy and load balancing, and this is pretty much aligned with the actual project scenarios. However, in the real life scenario, the servers are set up in different computers. So in the next part, we would like to replicate that scenario. So instead of single computer, we would like to use multiple computers, so that we can run our servers in different computer, and we would like to see how the load balancing works in that case. Okay, and that time definitely our this local host part should be changed, because that time 2 different computers we would be using, and this will, in place of local host, we should be using the IP addresses. Okay, and that time the port number should not be changed, because the servers are running in different computers, so that time there won't be any port conflict, right? So that way, and also that time we would see how the disaster recovery configurations work. So that is the plan. So if you if you have understood the video, and if you have learned something new, so I would request, please do subscribe, please like it, and then in case you have some question, please put it in the comment section. I would like to answer that. So that is it for today, and hope you have learned something new. So thank you so much, and see you with a new video on a new topic. Thank you.